Well, back to our top story this morning, the breaking news that a car has been torched and as many as 7 homes have been vandalised in Sydney's eastern suburbs. For those who aren't aware, big Jewish population in Sydney's eastern suburbs. So the story continues here. Joining us live now is New South Wales Premier Chris Minns. Premier, good to see you. Thanks for your time this morning. Let's start off with your reaction to this.
Yeah, an abhorrent, violent hate crime, an antisemitic attack on communities in the eastern suburbs of Sydney, I think deliberately designed to strike fear into those communities. And Peter, you have to understand, and I'm sure you know this, but Australia is home per capita to the second highest number of Holocaust survivors in the world. People who've come to this country specifically to hate, to prevent or get away from this kind of hatred and division. So I'm appalled by it. Of course, we're worried about it, but it will be met with a full police response. And I think the community needs to come together and condemn these shocking attacks. OK, well, on that police response, is there any progress on the investigation this morning? I know it's only in the early stages. Yeah, there is. I spoke to the police commissioner about 6:15 this morning. Their inquiries are beginning. I'm not, at this point, in a position to detail them on the program because you'd appreciate the most important thing is that we catch who's ever responsible for this, and we send a very clear message that if you perform this kind of hatred, this kind of violent act, you'll be met with the full force of the law. And clearly, Peter, there's people in our community with hate in their hearts. So what will you be doing in the next few hours, Premier? I'm going to go straight to the eastern suburbs, meet with local police officers. I've spoken this morning with David Ossip, the president of the Jewish Board of Deputies as well. We need to make sure that there's a united condemnation about these horrific crimes. Then the police will roll out their inquiry. It's important to note that as distressing and appalling as the attacks in Wallara were several weeks ago, the person who's alleged to have committed those offences was arrested, and you can expect a full police inquiry this morning from New South Wales Police. Okay. The last thing I'd say, and I think this is very important, and that is that most people that live in New South Wales regard these attacks as disgusting and antithetical to what we've built here in New South Wales, and that's an important message to say this morning as well.
Premier, look, you've been widely applauded for your reaction ever since October 7, but these attacks are still going on. Why do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's worth having a longer conversation about what puts hate in people's heart, but I'd just say that we can't live in a community in Sydney in 2024 where we import problems or divisions or conflicts from around the world onto the streets of Sydney. We just can't do it. And we don't have the free speech rules that they have in the United States. We've got strict interpretation of hate speech in the state. If that needs to go further in a legislative sense, that's exactly what I'll do, because I think it's my duty as the Premier of the state to protect what's been built over successive decades, and that is a harmonious community. We just can't put that in jeopardy because some horrific individuals decide to carry out anti-Semitic attacks on the streets of Sydney.
So we just had the member for Vaucluse on the program just a moment ago, and Kelly Sloan is saying that law enforcement needs to be coming down harder. So on that point of police, do you agree with that?
Look, I mean, I think police have got to get on with the job. These are important investigations. I want to make it clear that when we saw recent attacks in recent weeks on the streets of Sydney, they did execute an arrest, and the individual who's accused of committing those crimes was charged by police. Now, I want to make it clear that if we need to change laws in the state when it comes to hate speech, that's what we will do. And I don't do that lightly. It is impinging on people's rights, but we cannot have a situation where with impunity someone can walk down the street, sow division amongst different communities and then gleefully go home whilst the rest of us are left with the implications. So look, police, these are complex investigations. They're doing the job that they need to do. I want to make it clear to the communities of Sydney that they'll get on with that this morning, and these acts will be met with a full police response.
All right. So, as I've already said, you know, your response has been applauded for most of the last year. Premier, you're out front on these issues, moving quickly on them. Should the Prime Minister be taking a leaf out of your book by moving faster on these issues?
Look, I've spoken with him many, many times, Peter, about both this issue and others. He's someone whose entire public life has been standing up against racism in our community. I remember when Anthony wasn't leader, he was the member for Grainler, and he was one of the the loudest voices against the BDS movement against Israel, the boycott, divestment and sanctions movement against Israel. He stood resolutely against that, notwithstanding the fact he had an inner city electorate, but he was committed to that position. So I'll work with him absolutely to confront what is despicable hate crimes and anti-Semitism in our community. Big
picture, Premier. Do you agree with the Foreign Minister Penny Wong's comments equating Russia and China with the democratic state of Israel?
Look, I'll be honest with you, Peter, I haven't seen those comments, so I can't comment specifically about it, but I'm not going to, on your program this morning, equate the democratic state of Israel with the actions of Russia. I'm not going to do that, and I don't believe that's the case.
Well, she basically, and I know you say you're not across her comments, but it was said in a speech yesterday where she said it's not anti-Semitic to be critical of Israel because, you know, it's in the same basket basically as Russia and China and these other nations that aren't democracies. So you would disagree with that?
Yeah, Peter, I mean, in fairness to me, we've got a full plate in front of me this morning. That's what I'm focusing on. But if you're asking me directly, would I equate the actions of Russia with the democratic actions of the State of Israel, the answer is no. And it's difficult for me to comment about a speech that I haven't read. Now, that's not through a lack of interest. That's not through a lack of understanding on the issue. I've just got a full plate this morning.
Understood. Premier Chris Minns, I know you're busy. Thank you so much for squaring away some time for us, though. Really appreciate it. Thank you.